I think as the years have gone by, I've realized that West Virginia has those important elements to it, and I think elements that have been kind of pinpointed by the so-called elites, that they basically have places they can run away to when it all comes down. And of course, you know, we talk about the Greenbrier, and we can talk about some of those other kind of places. But as we're kind of talking about Sarah Jane Moore and being released and Manson, as I've been watching all of these kind of events over the last few weeks, as if on cue with the Trayvon Martin situation, seemingly trying to bring about some kind of helter-skelter situation, as if on cue, Charles Manson appears in the news, you know, with the little grizzled, a little older, but again, you know, Charles Manson, 77, you know, his 11th parole hearing, or perhaps his 12th parole hearing. It was just, when I saw him pop up, you can see those moments kind of happen.
Yeah, that's another cult story. That's another category. The reversal stories are usually followed by mass shootings within 48 hours to implant fear. I used to study hypnosis, so I know some things about this, but
So what's an example of a current reversal story? And when you say reversal, you mean it's the sort of it's the opposite of what people expect, or it has a sort of factor to it?
It causes hypnosis. Whenever you want to deepen hypnosis in a patient, you confuse them. You count wrong on your count. You know, if you're counting them into they call it the induction of the trance. You confuse the mind, and while the conscious mind is occupied with the confusing information, the subconscious is free to program. So that's why they do it. So then, the mass shooting, the fear goes very deep into the subconscious. It's happened 3 times this IDES. And I've predicted each one of them just because I got clued into these reversal stories 2 or 3 years ago. And I've been editing Mothman Shrieks and Mothman Squeaks of my next 2 books. And what I do is I cover interviews I've done in the past, and I edit them, and then I update them with notes as I'm and so I've been rereading these IDES reports that I've done in the past 3 years, and I'm noticing all the same stories, actually specific stories. Manson is one of them. And what they're trying to do there with Manson is remind you of bad people that got punished. And the stranger, the better. So, you know, any strange cult stories are brought back up. Any terror stories are brought back up. Any unsolvables are brought back up.
And we see that right now.
That's another category. The unsolvables can be anything. It can be Amelia Earhart or Loch Ness or
the 33-year later search that's now going on in New York for this for what is his name? Eaton Patz?
Well,
Patsy?
I noticed that his name can also be phonetically considered to be Patsy. You see, so there's all kinds of strange they'll choose things to highlight that have a subliminal message in them, like his name. And the fact that it was 33 years ago, the number 33, but I was noticing that Eugenia Mazur's story was saying that she knew somebody connected to that case, and it had to do with that Long Island cult that we saw fictionalized in Eyes Wide Shut, which may connect to Manson. But these unsolvables demoralize people because they remind you that you're never going to be given the actual truth about anything. You're not worthy of it. And so there you go. The reversals tend to not only when followed by a mass shooting, install fear, but they, in and of themselves, they build an acceptance of lies. Because here you have, the mainstream media, which is supposed to be your trusted source, feeding you obvious stories that are obviously not true. And I noticed that Obama, trying to remember what this was, but it's there would be a reversal story, and then Obama would have a surge. He would announce a surge in Iraq or Afghanistan. That's happened 2 or 3 times in the past, since he's been in office. And 2 of those reversal stories that were on the same day as his surges were NASA stories, which often are connected with dinosaur stories on the same day. But these were stories about planets that spin backwards, or one was called An Unbelievable Planet. There was something about it that didn't make any sense. So that's a reversal. So what that does is that it acclimates the population to the fact that politicians lie, because as they're lying and flip-flopping, they're presenting you with a story from science that says, oh, well, flip-flops happen in nature all the time. Looky here. Here's a planet that revolves backwards. It's very cagey stuff. And it's been think tanked, to the max, I would guess.
We had the Discovery do its flyover in D.C. the other day. Yeah.
And I noticed there was a picture of it flying by Minerva on top of the Capitol.
Now, there's actually something that I've noticed floating around, if you will, but I haven't exactly gotten into, because that's another... I've kind of seen the dominant element, and for me, I guess I've just been watching it since the Costa Concordia shipwreck on Friday the 13th back in January. And ever since then, I've seen nonstop water-related stories. So many shipwrecks, drownings, all these sort of water-related memes. And that can relate back to Minerva.
Yeah, and they often have ship sinkings during the Ides. Sometimes they involve oil rigs or oil disasters. Last year the year before we had the BP rig, which blew off right on, I think, yesterday on that date.
You're right. Well, yeah, that one's so recent we haven't added it in a way to the sort of litany of 419, 420 related events. That's right.
There's always a bunch of natural disasters in the Ides. There's earthquakes. There's a Mexican earthquake every Ides. There's volcanoes. There's one that went off today. They're all, and if there's not a natural one, then they will hype one that might happen, which, if you'll recall, they were hyping the New Madrid quake possibility. I think it was in the Ides last year or the year before. So it doesn't have to be a real one, or it can be one, or it can be the threat of one.
So your 3 reversal stories you were just mentioning were what?
Which
you said that you've seen, 3 things happen that you kind of called.
Yeah, I would have. I've got my calendar here. I can look. I thought one thing I might do is just ram through in a stream of consciousness all of the things I've noted on the calendar since March.
That may really also really be the way to do it, because I don't know if I've said it here, but yeah, we're maybe similar in that way.
Yeah, and it'll be in there. I do know. I'm trying to remember what they were, but they let's see. We've got. Let's see. March started off with a Davy Jones Manson story, some connection there. Soldiers were pissing on Iraqi bodies. And then I think yesterday we had another corpse incident where they were playing with corpses. That's a sex and death. The decadence category, they burned Korans. There were 3 heart stories: a heart that was stolen in Dublin, an artificial heart that didn't beat, Dick Cheney got a heart transplant, and there was another heart story which is in here somewhere. But there's always a Chase scandal that they float, and they like to pack in the problems for elites. I call them the problem stories. They lump these in with this so that they get buried.
What kind of scandal? Chase?
Chase, anything involving the Rockefellers. It was in 2009. They had got caught with their hand in the cookie jar in the bank bailouts. This year it's the News Corp scandal because they actually own News Corp, and News Corp was spying on 911 victims' families. So you have to wonder, why would Chase want to be doing that? And the obvious thing is they own the Twin Towers, or the Rockefellers built them, and perhaps, you can speculate if they were involved in bringing them down. But
built on former slaughterhouse land.
Yeah, 911's a whole category to itself. Virginia passed, I'm just rolling through March, Virginia passed an abortion law. Limbaugh attacked that lady.
The slut contraception scandal.
Yeah,
which I think kind of prepped us for, in a way, kind of got us emotionally heated in preparation for the Trayvon Martin story, in a way.
Yes. So here's our first reversal. The artificial heart that didn't beat was on the 6th of March. On the 8th, you have the University of Pittsburgh shooter. The Keystone Pipeline was voted down on that day as well. So that's a loss for the elites. Anytime there's a problem for the elites, you usually have a mass shooting. That's another reason, it seems, that the mass shootings. Anytime Bush lost on anything, there was a mass shooting that day. A stewardess on a flight was taken off. We're talking about 911 on the 9th. The Fukushima anniversary was on the 10th, I think. The Afghan massacre by the... that was a reversal story on the 9th. The stewardess talking about 911. Well, what's a person who works on a plane talking about terrorism, right?
On flight 191.
Yeah. 2 days later, Afghan massacre by the dude from Fort Lewis.
On 311.
Who's from Ohio and turns out to be a Wall Street scammer before he got in the military. FEMA guillotines on the 12th. They have guillotines and boxcars waiting for us. $7 billion in pink slime was bought by the FDA for schools right after it was found to be dangerous. That's a reversal story. And
the pink slime story, and again, I have a whole site dedicated to kind of food, environment, health issues. And that one, I feel like I look at as positive moves that in so many ways we're kind of losing on so many fronts. But on the food front, it seems like once people kind of find out about stuff and get angry, that companies have been changing their packaging and at least giving lip service to changing their ingredients. But the pink slime story has been kind of ongoing.
One of my favorite ones of that in that area is Bush. They discovered that putting more drug ads on TV caused kids to take more drugs. And so on the same day that story came out, he upped the amount of money for drug ads. It's unbelievable. We had the Coney thing in Africa on the 13th, the shark frenzy. There's always shark attacks. I mean, one of the guys on Mouthy Talk, Greg Nathan, has a whole thing about shark attacks and how they play into military ops.
I remember the summer of 2001 was nothing but shark attacks and Chandra Levy.
Yeah. Also on the 13th, John Mark Carr had an art show, and John Benet Ramsey's dad came out with a book, or they were in the news at the same time.
Who's John Mark Carr?
He was the guy that came forward to say that he had killed John Benet, but it was all a lie. And I think it was timed, I'm a little hazy, I think it was timed to go with the death of what's her name, who was married to the